Hi there. I thought I'd talk to my practitioner friends again. Caused something of a stir with the first video. But anyway, very pleased to see that so many of you are interested in coming on board. There were scores and scores of replies, in fact, which is rather nice. It's going to take us maybe 3 weeks to wade through them all. Because, of course, each person has a lot of questions and it's a nice, lengthy, involved discussion. We love bonding with you guys. But please be patient. It'll take us a while to get through you all. And, of course, one of the questions is, we have a question, which is, what can we do for you? What is it that a practitioner most needs and wants just now? We have what I think is probably one of the best toolboxes, if you like, to add to your armory and your equipment. We've got a lot to offer and things that nobody else has, as well as things that are quite similar to what other people have. It's definitely new and definitely novel. And of course you'd expect me to be a little bit biased, having developed it. To me it's bigger, it's better, it's wider, it's longer, and it shines more brightly and so on. But the point is, it should all be part of a river of growth and a river of knowledge. There are people out there, practitioners even, I'm sorry to say, who are particularly stuck in their ways, and they don't want to hear anyone talk about possible improvements. There's nothing wrong with what I do, it's perfect. Often, I find these people kid themselves that they get good results all the time, and I was guilty of this in the past. You tend to remember only the successes and think you're a brilliant genius and it works for everybody. I got pretty ruthless with my stats many years ago, in the 80s in fact, and I logged them very carefully over the space of several years, and I found they were very consistent. About 60% of people were totally well, off all the medication, brilliant. Another 25% or so were very much better, off their meds or reduced meds. And then there was about 15% didn't seem to be able to help, of which about half were not helpable because they didn't do what you said, they didn't follow instructions. So they weren't exactly failures. But still, there was a small core of people I couldn't help. But, I rarely meet practitioners who are that honest. They're full of themselves and full of their story. But, if somehow in your view of yourself, which we want to be wonderfully robust and rounded and very positive, you see yourself in those lights. But if in doing so, you admit there's a tiny area for improvement, then we'd like to take a look at that with you. We think we have something new that is special and is a bit different and maybe more forward moving, if you like. And you see, there's been a river of growth over the evolution of knowledge, basically. I mean, hypnotism was basically, it started as a 19th century phenomenon. It's still around, of course. And then, through Freud and Breuer, it spread into psychoanalysis, and that evolved and so on, and eventually we got Gestalt, and then we got Est, which was very successful. That was an offshoot of Scientology, I believe. I never did an Est course, but I know a lot of people that did. The thing is, with Est, one of the aims seemed to be to insult and shock and hurt people. Really make them feel very foolish and inadequate as part of the recovery process. That, maybe that just worked in the 80s, but it doesn't work today. It's not something that I'm comfortable with doing anyway. Let's put it like that. As I say, I think we genuinely got something for the better here, much for the better. But the important point, and this is, I think, what a lot of the early respondents didn't quite grasp. Well, let me take the blame, meaning I didn't make it quite clear for you all. There's a tremendous amount of extra material in Supernoetics than just mind-changing techniques or, re-engineering, backwards engineering the past. I talked about that in the first video and how there's very good science, and we have a technique which goes precisely to the current 21st century science. And in that sense already we're ahead, that you can make memories very plastic and very changeable and unstable if you do it the right way, and just at that moment you can produce amazingly transformational changes, which does not dump the memories, it simply dumps the negative connections with the memories. But we've got so much more. We've got teaching and data and knowledge, how things work, what I call my structures of thought, which is a massive concept in itself. I mean, listen, the simplest structure of thought's a list, okay? A to-do list. And then the next simplest would be a plan, you know, do that, do that, do that, and do that, and so on. But we've got some way more complex and interesting structures of thought than that. For example, my constellation of a chord. It's not just enough to move people around on the timeline and help them lift off charge from past events. People need to know how things work, and if you don't know the constellation of a chord, frankly, I don't know how you could live comfortably. You'd end up quarreling with people all the time, you'd have bad emotions, you'd screw up your relationship. Oh, wait a minute, I've just realized that is what happens because people don't know the constellation of a chord that I've written about in such detail. The 12 channels of being, you know, people trip over their own feet trying to get here, trying to help that, but that crosses over with that, interferes with this. To harmonize your 12 channels of being is a major undertaking, and it's the whole basis of reason and rationality and sanity. If you don't have that, you're not really living to the full potential, and you cannot live to the full potential without knowing these things. And I'm talking now about training, courses, learning. You know, people need to learn how things work. Otherwise, they will just stumble their way forward and screw up all over again. And of course, that, you know, that's more or less inevitable. So it's not just cleansing past experiences, it's spreading the wisdom to know what to do in the future, if you like. And that's one of the most important things that I've learned with Supernoetics, that people's lives transform, if anything, more by learning how the mechanics of consciousness, the mechanics of existence, and how to make changes anyway in a self-determined way, quite regardless of whether you're doing hypnotism or Gestalt or EFT or Sedona method or any of those things. In addition, you need the knowledge of how life works. And I'm sorry to be a bit boastful, but most of my subscribers know I do have special things to offer. You know, I'm several jumps ahead. I've always got, you know, tuned in to what's in the wind. I'm always looking at the latest research papers, and we're always experimenting with things that work. And so that's one of the first things you'll find if you join us. There's a torrent of knowledge coming to you. It isn't just about working a person's timeline and coming to terms with, you know, with the past and so on. That's pretty important, okay? So it's not that I'm trying to knock what anybody else is doing, but, you know, there are people who are stuck. You know, they're just stuck where they are. They get there, they get filled with dogma and the great I am. And of course, the classic case of that in my sphere was the man who refused to believe that blood circulated around the body. And he famously, this was demonstrated by William Harvey in the 17th century, but one of the doctors present famously said, "I'd rather be wrong with Galen than right with Harvey." Galen was 2,000 years earlier, and he had the wrong idea. He thought blood just sloshed backwards and forwards. Listen, this is how knowledge and dogma could go. And I've met a lot of people in my life who've said, "I'd rather be wrong with Galen than right with you," or, you know, that kind of thing. And if I appear to criticize, that's perhaps not quite fair, because, for example, I pointed out that EFT is pretty shallow and doesn't dig very deep, and things will tend to blow back in your face because they're not really erased. Some people have taken high dudgeon at that, and they're very offended and upset, I should say that. Let me tell you, I got this from EFT practitioners. This is not my thinking, it's EFT people saying, "Something missing, we need more, have you got anything, doc?" You know, and they've been interested for that reason. So, you know, and in Europe, for example, one of the very highest echelon leaders of EFT in Europe came to us, or my colleagues in Copenhagen, very interested in what we had to offer, and he was the person to say first, you know, well, we need more, you know, it's okay, but, you know, it's not enough. We need some extra tools, as it were. And tools is what we do. Tools is what we're good at. I like to think of Supernoetics now as being at the extreme forward end of progress. I have a reputation myself of being on the cutting edge, you know, doing the science. Listen, I like to think I am doing some of the cutting myself, and certainly here, as in this instance. We have a wealth of science that goes behind what we're doing. This is not feel-good stuff. This is backed by research materials. It's backed by experimentation and definitive study of what works and what doesn't work over the years. And again, maybe I should stand back and just let somebody else say their piece for me. Check out these practitioners and what they have to say.
Hello, I'm Lisa Best. I've been working with Dr. Keith in Supernoetics for about a year now. And the experience has been phenomenal, life-changing. I see effects in my family, in my work, in my ability to function. It's just an amazing, amazing process, and I'm so looking forward to continuing it.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mary Travers. I'm a chiropractor who does neurological work rather than structural work. I've been studying Supernoetics with Dr. Keith for a relatively short time, a couple of months maybe. And I am getting so much benefit already in seeing great results with these clear and simple techniques. A recent experience I had was with a friend who had a concern about a breast issue. She had breast pain, and she had several digital infrared thermographies, and she asked me to look at the results with her. And the results were not definitive, but she was very worried about it. And I asked her why she was worried, and she said, well, this really scares me. And I was able to just ask her why it was so frightening, because the results didn't really indicate anything. And she said, you know, this is just something that bothers me. When I worry, my breast hurts. So I was able to ask her simple questions about what worried her, and I was careful to not lead her, but just to let her speak. This is one of the things that we value in this work. And she was able to identify her sources of worry and concern around her professional life, and the fact that she was afraid about running into trouble with authorities over certain aspects of her natural healing work. And as she spoke, and she realized that what she had been attempting to implement probably wasn't the right path for her, that she had other avenues that were more productive and more empowering and more whole for her. And she spoke for, probably an hour, and I was able to just keep her talking by asking her simple questions about what she was feeling or why she was feeling something. And at the end of this period of time, she said, my breast doesn't hurt. I get it. I feel wonderful. I feel so whole. I have a direction. And it was clear to her at that point that the concern with her breast wasn't about her breast at all. It was about her emotional state and her sense of worry about it. It had been going on for some years, this issue. Since then, she's had cascades of realizations around how she got into that situation in the first place, how she was feeling that way, why she was feeling that way, things that had been said to her in the past that had influenced her to kind of taint her thinking. And she has been able to identify those things as being false for her, not her truth, and has continued to grow exponentially in the several weeks since we had this experience. Thank you.
You know, I'm brand new to Supernoetics. I just had my first exposure to it recently in Las Vegas. It was a wonderful experience, and so I'm just really excited about it, and feel, some shifts that happened for me personally. And I have some more sessions I'm going to be doing with Hydron, which I'm looking forward to, and I want to use it with my clients. So I'm just ready to learn more and continue to experience my own shifts, you know. I'm a psychotherapist, not a physical, not physical. So I work, more in the mental health field. And I've been, I've tried lots of, I've experimented with lots of different techniques, and I do work with a lot of trauma. So that was a big part of why I was interested in this. I'm always looking for new and improved ways to help people. So I've been telling all my clients about it, and they're very excited. And I wasn't sure if it's okay to start, but I have been dabbling a little bit. I hope.
Okay, now, the thing is, we don't just want to have the privilege of teaching you something. That's nice. But what we actually want is for you to get the idea, to connect with the fact that there's a whole body of data here. As I said, we've got learning things, we've got educational things, business stuff, prosperity and wealth programs. Once you start, researching the real depths of how things work, then you come up with answers, and new answers that nobody else has, by the way. So we'd like you to join us, not just be a customer or a guest. We want you to actually get involved and work with us and learn with us. It's great fun, and the next few years are going to be very exciting. And, I'm fond of quoting Margaret Mead, quite famous saying, well, it's attributed to her anyway, that, don't ever doubt that a small band of people can change the world, because in fact that's the only thing that ever has made a difference. We're small now, but Christianity was once small, Buddhism was once down to just 1 or 2 people. Everything grows in time if it's got something worthwhile to say, and we definitely have something worthwhile to say in Supernoetics. Okay, thank you very much for listening. Take care.